Clickety Click Productions returns after a long hiatus. I did point and I did click, but that's not what I meant to say. I meant to say I did post a video that I ended up deleting because it was so raw, and I don't like posting stuff that I haven't thought about at all first. And this was a rather negative, sort of wrathful post that later I retitled a Jeremiad, and then I just decided to take it offline altogether because it was just so lacking in an insightful adult presence, let's say. It was Joe unsupervised, as it were. I'm not even going to summarize it other than to say the stress was getting to me, and I was annoyed with our civilization for failing to do things the way I think that we should. In any case, today, not so much to counterbalance that, but just to reflect where I'm at. This is ostensibly a journal of the COVID era, or a diary. Diaries, well, the word diary comes from the word related to diurnal, like each day. Well, it certainly isn't meeting criteria for a diary on that basis, but in any case, more like verbal diarrhea. Sorry, that's really disgusting, but sometimes I am. In any case, what I'd like to say today is that I don't know if I've ever said this on my channel here, but I tell many of my patients that I have something I call the quiet story. The quiet story. The quiet story is, it's a little bit like what's happening while your mind is preoccupied with something other than that. That's not exactly clear. Another way to talk about it would be silver linings, but that's not quite right either. It's kind of like a saying attributed to John Lennon that life is what happens while you were making other plans. So the quiet story is often more positive than the loud story. But let's say I just won the lottery, then winning the lottery would be the loud story. So it's not necessarily more positive. The quiet story is almost more like the air we breathe. It's what's here and obviously here, and so we ignore it. But it's the quiet story. So the quiet story, let me first clarify what my loud stories are. When I say a story, those of you who know me and know this channel know that I mean, like a lot of sort of mindfulness type people, Buddhist-y people, mean something we tell ourselves, something our mind tells us, something monkey mind tells us over and over and over again. We call that a story. So a series of thoughts that we have that are pretty automatic, that just play over and over and over again. And very often we end up believing them wholeheartedly. So one of the things we do in therapy is start to notice those and maybe start to question whether they really are God's honest truth or someone's honest truth, and whether they really are useful at all, whether their truth value is at issue or not, whether they are helping us. Well, so we all have many such stories, some of which are useful, some of which are not very useful. But the quiet story is whatever's happening that we're really not paying much attention to, and it would be actually more useful were we paying attention to that. So for instance, my loud stories about COVID, and here I can at least do justice to some of the content that I attempted to convey in my last video that I took down. My loud stories are: civilization only gets its act together when there's an immediate threat to people, and especially people with money. Other loud stories I have right now are, well, I guess I don't have to tell you what my opinion of our president here in the United States is, because I've told you it before, but there have been very few politicians that I've loathed more viscerally than this particular one. So I have lots of loud stories about that. I have lots of loud stories about, all kinds of things. Take your pick. I'm not good enough in this way. I'm not good enough in that way, and so forth. But actually, much as I complain here and elsewhere, here less than elsewhere, actually, believe it or not, the quiet stories about COVID and the COVID era that we now live in, this very formative period of time, are, first of all, other people are writing about this. And I mentioned in one point that I was going to talk about how I think we'll change because of COVID. So I'm going to try to do justice to that too. So I'm going to list a whole bunch of, I'm going to adjust this because this is killing my knees to sit the way I'm sitting at the moment. Light is lovely in here, but it doesn't translate very well to, you can get to see my dirty laundry. That's really airing your dirty laundry in public. How was I sitting? Oh, okay. Block that unpleasant swath of light. There we go. Quiet stories going on right now. So the world is pulling together more or less. Most states are doing a really good job in the United States of putting into place the recommendations of health authorities. We really are flattening the curve. We really are preventing many, 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 many deaths that were projected that aren't happening. And they're not happening not because COVID isn't as dangerous as we thought, but because we're doing these things. Difficult to prove, but somewhere they probably are going to prove it for us by lifting the constraints too soon. And then we'll see a huge spike in deaths. I predict that will happen somewhere. So it is probably a falsifiable thing. But in any case, I do think that these measures that we're all doing are working. That's a big quiet story. Maybe it's not so quiet anymore. Another quiet story that other people are writing about, it's not the quietest of all, is that families and other groups of people are coming together on their own. And my family is no exception. We're spending a heck of a lot of time together. We don't usually get to take long extended vacations together. Very few American families do. Out in Europe, folks get 6 weeks vacation a lot of times. Wouldn't that be nice? 6 weeks paid vacation? 8 weeks in some countries. So in any case, we don't get much of that here. And as my wife and I are both freelancers, we don't take super long vacations, though we might take them more often. And in any case, this is the most time my family has spent together as a unit. And we're really benefiting from that, I think, in a number of interesting ways. And it's not always fun, and it's not always easy. Individuals are getting their act together, are pulling things together. Some individuals are falling apart, relatively speaking, though I think that a lot of that's just a loud story. I'm falling apart, I'm falling apart, I'm falling apart. So let's not give that too much credence. But some people are really, really suffering and having a hard time and not feeling like they're making progress. But many people, and I do include myself here, are finding resources that either we didn't know we had or we knew we had, but we weren't tapping them. I've started exercising regularly, which is a really good idea because I have all kinds of risk factors in the cardiac area here. And so that's another quiet story, is people are getting out and walking. Nature is getting a break from us. We're not driving as much. All kinds of things are happening that are getting some attention. 9 minutes into my video, 9.5 minutes, I might want to think about an exit plan, but I do think I'd like to talk a little bit more about this quiet story notion. Even what happened, this is a little solipsistic, a little self-referential, so I apologize if it comes across as not useful in some way. Hopefully it's useful. Even this process of talking to you on these videos, and even that process of blurting out a whole bunch of negative things and how angry I was with our civilization for not taking care of the whole planet and for not taking care of our planet when there's no COVID virus, for not taking care of people who are hungry or food, what's the word? Starving, but there's also food insecure, don't really have enough to eat. That's certainly not most of us in America, in the United States. So even that process of blurting out all that stuff and then kind of backpedaling, calling it a Jeremiad, and then just making it a private video that I'm not happy with, that doesn't really follow the standards I've set for myself, which, as you know, the production values are not very high standard, but the honesty, and also more than honesty, the reflectivity is important for me here. So reflecting is something we have a lot of time to do now. And it's probably a good thing. In some cases, reflecting just ends up being like two mirrors facing each other, and it just goes and not much goes on. That's helpful, and that's sort of like just rumination. Yeah, that'll go on too. But when you leave room, enough room, like if you were to go on a meditation retreat, which maybe 1% of the population who watches this channel has done at some point, maybe a little higher. If you go on a week-long meditation retreat, you have tons of time to reflect. Most of the time you spend when you're supposed to be meditating and or reflecting, most of the time we spend agonizing. At least I do. I don't like getting up at 4 in the morning. But there's another example of a time when there are many, many loud stories. I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired. I don't want to meditate anymore, yada, yada. And then there are some quiet stories, and the quiet stories are what bring me back to meditation centers for more retreats, even though I've loathed going on retreat. It's my, I guess, a word that I'm enjoying using today. Loathsome. And as a final note, there have been some wonderful things happening in the musical world, which, as many of you know, is very, very close to my heart. For one, one of the musicians I absolutely adore, Robin Hitchcock, and his absolutely lovely partner, life partner, and musical partner, Emma Swift, have been harmonizing so beautifully from their couch, offering a essentially free concert, like $5 to watch, and then you can give tips if you want more. They're not the hugest names in the world, but I adore them. They've been doing this every week, and I'm just my heart's all nice and warmed up from the concert they did today. It's been actually twice a week, once for the Americas and once for Europe, so at different times. Another pair of musicians, another couple, have been doing some absolutely hilarious things that we did not expect from them. This would be Robert Fripp, legendary prog rock guitarist, and his lovely wife, Toya Wilcox, who has been in bands including The Humans and also was the narrator of the Teletubbies. They have been doing some very funny things, including dressing in bumblebee suits and running all around their gardens and things that you really wouldn't expect them to be doing if you know, especially Robert is thought to be a very, well, anyway, I won't get into that. It breaks character, the character people think he has. So these are just public examples of things people are doing that are a little bit wonderful. And I'm going on much too long, so I'm going to stop.